All right, now that you've gotten through 3K, which is the summative assessment for this grid, if you've gotten done with that before the due date, you should be on to the enrichment. And the first thing on our enrichment is all about retake. So the beginning just gives you a brief Powtoons about differences between formative and summative assessment, but now that you're at why do we have retake opportunities, that's what this video is going to cover, the ins and outs of retakes. So first off, the reason we have retakes, as I'm sure you've maybe heard before, is that we always want to be improving our learning, right? We don't always get it the first time. Even when the assessment is supposed to happen, sometimes we don't get it the first time. So even if the grid is done, this is for summative assessments, even if the grid due date is finished, you still have an opportunity to retake that summative assessment. So even if you do it early, or even if you do it on the last possible day, you will always have a retake option. Really, you can retake any formative assessment we have as well. Those just don't necessarily go in the grade book the way the summative assessments do. And if you're just doing a formative assessment, then all you need to do to retake is when you're getting that feedback from me when I grade your formative assessment, we just have to have a conversation if you really feel strongly you need to retake it before moving on to the next part of the grid. But for summative assessments, it's a little bit more involved for the retake because that's the grade that's actually going in Skyward, and that's where I need to see maybe a little more effort being put in order to take that retake. So let's talk about all the different aspects about retaking a summative assessment. Again, a formative assessment, all you need to do is have that conversation when I give you feedback on that assessment. But for summative, there are retake policies and guidelines we need to follow. So I'm going to go to our trusty old Google Classroom here and show you where all the retake information is. So these are the policies and contracts in order to retake a summative assessment. So let's look at the policies first. So I know this is kind of lengthy. I'm not going to read it all to you. It is there in Google Classroom if you need it. But the main thing I want to point out to you is that when you want to retake a post-assessment or summative assessment, okay, you have to fill out a retake form. And while I encourage you to do it 24 hours after getting your graded assessment, remember this is after the graded one, so not 24 hours after you take it, after you've gotten it back from me with your grade. I encourage you to do it within 24 hours, but, oops, got a little close there. But you have 48 hours, see right here, 48 hours from the time that your graded assessment is returned that you would need to submit the contract form for a retake. Okay, the Google form that you need to fill out with some information for me. Okay, so 48 hours in order to do that. So basically 2 days. So if I give you back your graded assessment on Monday, you would have until Wednesday night to get the Google form submitted to me. Okay, so if you have any other questions about that, you're more than welcome to take a look at this on Google Classroom or ask me or a friend. Now, when you do that form, here's the Retake Request. That is what that's called, the Retake Request. So you would click on this, and there are 6 different pages for you to fill out. Now, some are just, like this first page, getting your name, what's today's date, just so we have a timeline here. Some of them are like that. Some of them, and I'll show you my version so you can see it all, so we don't have to submit it all. Give me 1 second. Make sure, okay. So, as you look here, section 1 that you just saw where you're filling out your name, and then section 2, we're gathering a little more info, so you're going to have to tell me things, such as, first off, do you understand the process? And then you need to tell me what unit is this assessment, what standard or standards are on the assessment that you want to retake, because that's a good point, is that if there is an assessment that covers maybe 3 or 4 standards, maybe you only want to retake one of those standards. That's okay. We can do it that way, where you only do one standard. Why retake the whole thing if you only need to retake one part? So just something to keep in mind, that you need to tell me what standard or standards you want to retake. You need to tell me what score you earned on this assessment and list all that applies. So, for example, when you're listing the standard up here, you need to tell me what grade did you get on that standard. Don't just give me random numbers. So make sure you're telling me which one goes where. And then we want to know, did you do your best on this assessment? Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't do what we need to do to prepare. And so I want you to be honest here and tell me no. And then there's other times where maybe you did prepare, but for some reason you still didn't do that well on the assessment. So tell me yes or no if you felt like you did your best on it. And then please explain what you struggled with or didn't fully understand the first time. I'm looking for 3 to 5 sentences, so this needs to be a thoughtful response telling me what you needed to work on a little bit more, what you didn't get the first time. Next section covers one thing. Explain why you deserve a retake. Now, you can do this in bullet points, but again, it should be somewhat detailed because you're basically convincing me why you deserve a retake. Okay? If you really didn't try that hard, I don't want you to just expect you're going to get a retake. So really think, why do you deserve one? So then this is scheduling the meeting with me. So we need to figure out what day would work best. Okay, and so this is the day we'll figure out when to meet. So try and keep that within a reasonable time frame, not too long from the time that you took the assessment. And then what time of the day would work best. Now, if you have tutorial time, that is 9 times out of 10 going to be the time we meet, because that's kind of what that time is for. We have before school is only from 8 to 8:20. Okay, so you would have to figure out some way to get here if that's the time that we end up needing to use. Same with after school. You need to be able to have a ride to pick you up. They're not going to hold the bus or anything like that. So if we have to do after school, that would be the time frame, 3:50 to 4:10, and we were going to use that whole time, so that, or at least most of that time, when we're meeting, so we can discuss all of this. And then obviously we have lunchtime too, so I would write you a pass so you could go to lunch, bring it back, and we discuss over lunch, because I'd be eating then too. So those are the times that would work. I would like to try and keep it to tutorial and lunch as best as possible, but if we have to do before or after school, that works too. But those are the times that we would do that. Then the next section is to kind of recap, make sure you understand everything, make sure that you've read and you understand the entire process of completing the retake, that you've shared and discussed your retake choices with your parents. So when you're deciding within that day or two, you should discuss this with mom or dad, saying, hey, I didn't do so well on this test. I'm thinking of retaking. I'm going to submit the form. Just let them know that's not a bad thing. That's giving you a chance to improve your score. I think any parent would be really proud of that. So please make sure you're discussing that. And if you didn't, then please mark no. So that way I'm aware, and then we know that we need to contact parents or guardians so that they do know, because we want them to be somewhat involved with this process. And then we want to know that after the request, that you should make sure that you have gone to, and I'm going to show you this in a second, the Math Retake Contract, and review the assessment correction rules and requirements that are on Google Classroom. I will go back and show you that here in just a second. So saying yes or no to that. And then I will begin working on my assessment corrections and have them completed before I meet with my teacher. So when you send this, you need to right away start correcting your assessment, because our meeting might be within the next couple days. So I will get that back to you, but you need to make sure you're starting those corrections right away. And the last page is actually a freebie. You don't even have to answer anything. It just gives you a couple reminders here of what you need to do, and great job for taking charge of your learning. So that's the form that you would need to fill out. Let's go back to Google Classroom and look at the retake contract that you and I will discuss at our meeting. So at our meeting, we will go through that Google form. And before I get to this, one more thing about the Google form is when you send that, it sends an email to me, and I will be, after looking through it, let me try that again. when I get that email from you that the Google form has been sent, then I will send you an email back confirming our day and time, so you know exactly when we're going to meet. So you need to make sure to check your email for that. And when I send that email, I will also send it to your parents too. I will CC them on it. So you and your parents will get a copy of that. So the last thing is, here is the retake contract, and I'll show you again real fast. All of these are here, the policies, the contract, and that request form you have to fill out. This I will give you a hard copy when we meet, but this is here visually for you so that you know what this first step is that you need to do, which is those assessment corrections. So you need to use a separate sheet of lined paper to do that. You need to correct any and all problems that were incorrect. Usually I circle them. And if you're unsure which ones, please ask. Don't just not do it or don't do extra. Make sure you're asking so you know what to do if you don't understand. And then include an explanation of the error. So, what was your original mistake? How did you change it? How did you know your answer is now correct? So what did you learn from those corrections, basically? So that's step one that you will do before you meet with me when you get that confirmation email from me. Okay? When you come to the meeting, we're going to go through this whole contract together. So we'll fill out the name, we'll figure out the standard that we're working on, what topic it is. We will discuss what the meeting date and time is. I'll have this filled out for you. We'll discuss any extra practice you need to do on IXL, and then meet with the teacher to choose the date for the retake. So this is what we'll figure out during our meeting is the retake time. So this will be within 5 days of that extra practice completion. So right here, within 5 days of that, it doesn't have to be 5, it could be 1 or 2, but within that time frame of getting that extra practice done, that's when you will do your retake, and we'll agree upon a date, we'll sign it, and the contract should be turned in on the day of your retake. So bring this with you, this completed form with you when you do the retake. Now I know that was a lot. You may need to come back and look at this video again, and that's all right. I will post this video. I know it's already in the grid, but I will also post it with all this retake information too, so it's all together. Okay? And if there are any questions, please ask. We know that we don't always do the right thing the first time, and that's okay. The great thing is that we get to learn and practice and get better, and so that's what the retakes are all about. And so I want you to do the retake, but you got to put the effort in. It's a two-way street there. So all the information you would need is on Google Classroom in this retake session. They're all together. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me or a teammate.